Hey fam, I want to quickly, trying to keep it quick, quickly go over some few things that I had on my mind for a while. Um, I was always curious to know, um, particularly now in the last 5 years, when I began to look at things differently in terms of what's being pushed upon us, in terms of their agenda, things of that nature. Why is it that certain people are being pushed upon us to revere? And I'm particularly talking about the so-called Black History Month. And I know this won't be a popular topic, but whatever. Let's just talk about it. And you may not agree with me, but anyway, these are just my thoughts. But I'm curious to know, why is it that certain people like Martin Luther King Jr. are always pushed upon us? And how did his actions correspond with what the Most High told us to do concerning other nations? Again, I know this isn't a popular topic. I have a few clips here from the I Have a Dream speech. And then what some would consider the polar opposite, what I wanted to do was look at Malcolm X. And I know that he was not a follower of the Most High in the way that we follow him. He was in the Nation of Islam. But still, he tried to follow a mantra that he thought was right according to his beliefs. So I want to kind of look at Martin Luther King Jr., who was supposedly revered and pushed upon us to revere / worship. And then Malcolm X was demonized. So we have one that's all about peace and turning the other cheek and integration. And you have another who is talking about separation. And the reason why I want to say separation, because those are his words. I believe the clip that I have, he was asked about separation or segregation, and he makes a distinction. So I don't want to muddy his words by using the word segregation. So I'll use separation. So what I'll do is I'll show us a few clips, and then as the clips end, or whatever the case may be, I'll add a comment of my own. And again, these are my own comments, but these are just things I want you to think about when you began to reflect on who MLK was, who Malcolm X was, and how both of them lined up, if they did, with the Most High. So that's my point here today. And again, I know this isn't a popular topic, particularly with the way that I am angling, and I'll admit it, angling how this man is supposed to be revered, and how does it line up with the Most High. So let's look at the first clip, and like I said, I may or may not add a comment, immediately after. But again, just think about what this man is saying. And I have taken clips from his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and it's not in totality. I cut some of the parts out that aren't relevant to what I'm asking you guys to think about.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
All right, so I had to stop it there. We have one man that's being pushed upon us, MLK, making reference to another man that's been pushed upon us, Abraham Lincoln, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm going to do another video on this sometime in the future, but this whole thing about what he did in terms of signing this document and freeing a group of people is a bunch of nonsense. The people that he actually freed were white indentured servants, not the supposed African American or black man. And if you look at the 13th Amendment and see that clause in there, you see that we weren't really free. If you look on history, you'll see that the Jim Crow laws that were immediately put in place after that document was signed kept things status quo. When the Jim Crow laws were taken away, you had these supposed civil rights laws that had to come about. And even today, without giving it a name, knowing that nothing has changed, all these things that are happening to a particular group of people, slavery has not ended. It just shifted. And I have a book called The Forgotten Cause of the Civil War. And I want to review this book when you begin to talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. And some of the things in that book are eye-opening, and you begin to see the real cause for the Emancipation Proclamation. And it wasn't to free people of color. That's nonsense. That's never even crossed their mind, even though that's the propaganda that they pushed upon you. Anyway, so let's continue.
This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity.
Again, I ask, has our captivity really ended? Again, you need to look at things differently. We're not on, some of us are not on fields with chains around our ankles. We have a different type of chain. The most destructive type of chain is out there, and that is the chain on our thought process. So if you ask me, are we still in captivity? The answer is yes.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to stop it right there. All men are created equal. Are we all created equal? And again, this is just my opinion. Go look at Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6. There's evidence riddled all over those chapters that lets you know that everyone who walks this earth is not equal or created equally. Yes, we look alike. 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, 2 arms, 2 legs. But we're created from 2 different creations. Read the book of Enoch. The first couple of chapters, it breaks it down. Read Enoch 105 when Noah was born. That should be evidence enough to let you know that there were, I guess there still are, different creations, different types of beings that walk this earth. And I couldn't let that slide. This has nothing to do with the overall subject here, but I couldn't let that comment slide without stopping.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
Okay, so here's where I want to begin to focus or pay more attention to the words that MLK is going to begin to speak when he references brotherhood and integration. This is going to be one of the pillars of this particular conversation. So let's listen more closely.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Okay, so right there we're getting into the premise of why this man is being pushed so hard during these supposed holidays, holy days, these celebrations, their celebrations that they give to us. Anyway, holding hands, little black boys and little white girls, white boys and black girls, whatever he said, holding hands. Nope, not saying anything against being friendly or living amongst each other, but this is the premise. This is the reason why he's being pushed so hard. And again, we're going to see what the Most High says about this.
This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
All right, so here we go. So he's talking about going to jail together, praying together, worshiping together, having hope together. Again, nothing wrong with having hope, but remember in the end of the book of Deuteronomy, when Moshe or Moses is telling Yasharal that when they go into the promised land, they will begin to, when they eventually begin to transgress against the Most High, they will begin to ask their adversaries for advice or look upon them for advice on how to get along. And he prophesied that. And this is what MLK is saying. We will go to jail together. We will worship together. We will, what else is it? We'll go to jail, worship, pray together. And the Most High warned us about that. He told us when we transgress, what will actually happen. We will look to our adversaries. And this is what MLK is talking about.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Boom, there it is. Now let's think about this for a moment. How many of those people that he mentioned, Negroes, Jews, other groups, are actually free within that group that he mentioned? I think the only one that's not free are the so-called Negro. The only ones that will be singing Negro spirituals are the Negroes. Why are you going to sing about freedom if you're already free? You see what I'm saying? This is why they push this man up so high. One of the reasons. But if you check those last couple of seconds when he said we're all going to come together, we're all the Most High's children, that's the biggest lie that's been told since the beginning. We're not all the Most High's children. That's why in the Old Testament the Most High chose a specific group of people. And if you read it for what it says, yes, he's the creator of all, but he's only begotten one group of people. And he says that time and time again. And that's why you're being pushed to the New Testament, the rewrite of nonsense, the rewrite of his word to include all. Even if you read John 3:16 and read it in context and read the whole entire chapter, you will see the Most High does not love everybody. In Psalms 83, he points it out. He does not love everybody. When he begins to talk about the Raphaim, the giants, the Gentiles, the Moabites, the Philistines, Ammonites, Canaanites, you'll see he does not love everybody. Now, can people from all those groups have salvation? The answer is yes. That's why you have the sojourners and the strangers. But generally speaking, that common saying that Most High loves everybody is nonsense. And the powers that be know this. And that's why they pushed this man up, and that's why you see the continual propaganda of this man being pushed. And I'm not saying he wasn't courageous. I'm not saying any of that. But we need to reflect on, or we really need to look at everything that's being pushed upon us and ask ourselves why. And that's my whole purpose for doing this particular video. We need to ask ourselves why. Now let's look at a different man, Malcolm X, from before he went to Mecca. And let's listen to the differences of what this man has to say and try to figure out why he was demonized. So let's just begin to listen to this.
We're going, huh? You're in the picture. Minister X, you have described the Muslim movement as a religious organization, and you've said that there are a great many misconceptions about your attitudes and stated views and purposes. Could you tell us briefly what the basic tenet of the Muslim organization is?
Yes, we are Muslims because we believe in the religion of Islam. But Allah, we believe in one God, Muhammad as the apostle of Allah, and we believe in all of the prophets, all of the scriptures brought by those prophets, and then we practice prayer, charity, fasting, the same as is practiced in the Muslim world.
What is your attitude on the relations between the black and white races? What do you seek to accomplish?
Well, Mr. Muhammad teaches us that you never can force black people upon white people, and you never solve a problem by forcing anyone upon someone else, contrary to their will. And for that reason, he teaches us that integration will never work as long as you have to force it. So he has taught us that God has taught him that the best way to solve the problem that black people are involved in this country is to let us separate from whites and solve our own problems.
All right, so here we go. Separate and solve our own problems. Worship the way that we want to worship. Don't have your customs pushed upon us. Now I know that this is a different time. People are used to what they're used to. But, you know, we had a so-called Black Wall Street. You know, we were getting along. I'm just picking one reference. And what did they do? They bombed it. Right? We were able to get along. We were able to have our own communities. And when needed be, go to other communities and be able to trade or get along or whatever the case may be. But when we are amongst ourselves and succeeding, there was a problem, right? And I'm not even going to get into when the Europeans first came over, but just keep those things in mind. We were able to get along, and that's what I talked about earlier when I talk about the chains on our thought processes. We tend to think that we need to rely on other people to get along. Now we're probably going to have to break away from certain things in order to get to that standpoint, and it'll be a struggle. But to say that it can't be done is nonsense. But you're going to begin to see why, when this man begins to talk about separation, why he was so demonized, versus MLK was talking about integration. There's other things within that I'm not going to touch on, particularly when you begin to look at mortality rates amongst the different races and why we're needed. Again, I'm not going to touch on it. You can research it yourself, but why we're needed. And that's even in the Old Testament. But anyway, so let's continue on.
Is it fair to say, as a generality and as a succinct way to put it, that you believe in segregation of the races?
No, segregation is that which is, Mr. Muhammad says that segregation is that which is forced upon inferiors by superiors. Separation is done voluntarily by two equals. You never refer to the Oriental community in which Orientals live exclusively as a segregated community, because they live there voluntarily. Everything there is controlled by them. The economy, the politics, the civic organizations, but the Negro community is referred to as a segregated community because Negroes are forced to live in that community contrary to their will, and they don't control the businesses of their community. They don't control the politics of their community, nor their social life.
Okay, so here we're beginning to see that Malcolm X is beginning to make some very distinct differences between separation and segregation. And again, the separation is supposed to be voluntary. People of all races, creeds, whatever, ethnicities, on an equal playing field. That's what he defined as separation, or what he was taught, versus segregation in the 60s. Well, even before that, but I'm just keying on the 60s of what was deemed as what the thought process was for the powers that be from the South. Let me just put it that way. But again, let's listen more to what this man has to say. And again, once upon a time, well, ever since the beginning of time, we've always had our own communities when we were separate. There were times when we were mixing and trading amongst other people, but for the most part, we were separate.
For a man who is a Catholic president, who himself was discriminated against for a long time and accused Protestants of practicing religious discrimination, I think that he is way out of line to use his position now as the first Catholic president to open up his mouth against a religious group here in this country that is headed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If he's not going to open up his mouth and outright condemn the Citizens Council by name, and condemn the Ku Klux Klan by name, and condemn the white Masonic order, which is all white, by name, and the white churches in the South by name, then Kennedy is wrong to point at the Muslims because we are black and because we don't want to mix with the people down there. And I should say that when we express our desire not to mix with whites, they call us a hate group, and Martin Luther King is running around here telling Negroes to love all kind of white people, and they sick dogs on Martin Luther King. So it answers itself, and it shows the hypocrisy of the white man.
All right, so there you have it. You have one man that is Malcolm X talking about separation and pointing out when the Nation of Islam was talking about that, they were demonized, versus MLK, who was talking about integration. He was beloved and still being forced upon us, even though he passed. These were two Negro men with two different messages. Now, I'm saying that they're both Negroes, that's obvious, but back in those days, that was not revered as of today. Today, I'm not necessarily saying it's revered. I guess it's more tolerated now. But having outspoken Negro men during those times was frowned upon from the powers that be. One was beloved with one message. One was not beloved with an opposite message. And this is what I'm trying to get you to think about, not to put one man against another. The messaging, I guess, is more or less what I want to talk about, and then begin to look at that in accordance with what the Most High said. So let's look at some of the things that the Most High said. Okay, so the first passage that I'm going to read is from Genesis chapter 24. And this is after the Most High had already told Abraham to not mix with the Canaanites. So in this particular passage, Abraham is getting up in years. He's thinking of having his seed line prosper. So he tells one of his servants to go look for a spouse for Isaac. So let's quickly read that. And this is from the Sefer. So Genesis 24, verses 1 through 4. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Most High had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray you, your hand under my thigh, that's how they make covenants. And I will make you swear by the Most High of heaven, the Most High of earth, that you shall not take a woman unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. For you shall go into my country and to my kindred, and take a woman unto my son Isaac. All right, so let's think about this from a convenience standpoint. I know this is silly. We got women all around us. We live in this strange land. He was living in Canaan. We could pick anyone we want for my son. I'm prosperous. People know me. People respect me. This is Abraham. So I can easily pick a woman for my child. But Abraham is telling his servant to go back to his land and to, excuse me, and to choose a woman from amongst his kin for his son. Because you got to remember, the Most High had already said, do not marry a Canaanite woman. And part of the reasoning for that was because they were known, the Canaanites themselves, not just the women, were known to worship false gods and idols and things of that nature. So the Most High said, I don't want you mixing with those people, because I don't want you to begin to do that. I don't want you to begin to transgress against me. So stay away from them people in terms of marriage. So this is the commandment that Abraham was following. Okay, so now, still reading from the Sefer, let's look at Exodus chapter 23, verses 31 through 33. All right, and this is the Most High speaking. He said, I will, so they're preparing to, they're journeying, but they're preparing to go to the promised land. So it says, I will set your bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall cut no covenant with them, nor with their God. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their God, it will surely be a snare to you. All right, so just like the commandment that he put out concerning marrying the Canaanites, he's saying, cut no covenant with these people. Now, some of the people that they were going to encounter when they entered into the promised land were Canaanites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Jerusites, I believe the Hivites, I'm not 100% sure on that, and the Philistines. And he said, cut no covenant with these people. All right. If he's telling you not to marry or intermarry or integrate, and telling you not to cut a covenant with these people, don't intermingle your government with their government, your customs with their customs. Right. But what was MLK talking about? A day when black boys and white girls and black boys can pray together, go to jail together, worship together. That's not what the Most High said. And that man is supposed to be, or was supposed to be, a reverend, but I guess he was no disrespect, but I guess he was a New Testament evangelist. And a lot of people forget what the Old Testament said. That I keep saying this, that New Testament was written for a reason, right? The Most High, Malachi 3:6 said, it does not change, and I'm paraphrasing. So to go from old to new and think that he changed his mind, he never changed his mind. You see right there in Exodus, and these verses we're looking at, he says, don't cut no covenants with these people, because they're going to be a snare to you, right? But what do we do? What do we do when we got over there? Oh, they over there partying. You know, they got city lights and fast cars and better clothes and this and that. And we looked over the hill and was like, I want to be a part of that. And next thing you know, we're forgetting about all the things, all the blessings that we were given from the Most High. And we're doing that today. We're looking at somebody else and wanting to be like them, forgetting the fact that we had our own communities. We were able to support ourselves, not looking to others for advice concerning how we're supposed to live. We cut covenants. And that's what you had when you had these preachers preaching about their God. You cut a covenant with them and you're teaching against the Most High. Okay, so we'll look at one more passage and we'll get out of here. So again, this is still within the Sefer, Exodus chapter 34, verses 10 through 17. And he said, and this is the Most High, behold, I cut a covenant. Before all your people I will do wonders, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which you are shall see the work of the Most High. For it is a terrible thing that I will do with you. terrible and good in that regard. Guard that which I command you this day. Behold, I drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Take heed to yourself, lest you cut a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither you go, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you. But for ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, cut down their Ashtoreth poles. For you shall worship no other God, for the Most High is my name, and he's a jealous. Most High is jealous being. Lest you cut a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call you, and ye eat of his sacrifice, and take of their daughters unto your sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make your sons go a whoring after their gods. You shall make no molten gods. So there you have it. He's already told you that he's cut a covenant. Now remember, they're getting ready to go into the promised land. He's already cut a covenant with you and told you the blessings you're going to have if you follow him. He already told you the curses you're going to have if you don't follow him. Here he is reiterating, and he does it several times. Before you go into this land, listen to me. Don't follow the customs of the other people. Do not take their daughters for your sons. Do not take their sons for your daughters, for they sacrifice other gods, and your children will transgress against me for their spouses. That's essential for their, if they take these spouses of these other nations, that's what they will do. He's already prophesying what will happen and what did happen. So again, the premise of this whole conversation is, why was one man revered? Martin Luther King Jr. with his message: integration, love all, turn the other cheek, pray together, stay together, versus Malcolm X. Now, I'm not Muslim. I don't follow the Nation of Islam. But Malcolm X's message was separation. Stand up on your own 2 feet. You can live separately and still be happy and still treat the other nations fairly as they treat you. But in terms of customs, you can live separately. In terms of communities, you can live separately. And again, I'm not saying that we should begin to all have our own communities. I'm just trying to ask the question, why was one man revered and the other one hated? 2 different messages during the same time, 2 powerful men of color with powerful messages. And how did each message line up with the Most High? And when you look at all the propaganda, all of the lies, all of the games that are being played, and again, ask yourself, and I keep reiterating this because I'm trying to drive this home, why was one man revered and the other one hated? With 2 different messages. And how did their message line up with what the Most High said? He said, do not mix with these people from a marriage standpoint or a procreation standpoint. Don't follow their customs. Don't do what they do. Because if you follow them, you're going to eventually transgress against me. And that's what happened. So I think I've driven this point home enough. Again, this is not about hate. It's just what the Most High said. And I just want to do my part to get the message out there. Shalom. Hey, so I want to make 2 quick corrections. One being the Emancipation Proclamation. I said it only freed white indentured servants. I meant to say white indentured servants as well as white slaves. 2 different categories. And most importantly, this thing about separation, or the point that I'm trying to make, is not a black and white thing, because the Canaanites were a mixed group. The Philistines were supposedly redheaded or whatever, but the Canaanites, the Moabites, the Edomites and Moabites were our cousins. Them Ishmaelites, those are our cousins. So they were skin folk, but all skin folk is not kinfolk in terms of the covenant. So let's make that clear. It's not a black and white issue. There was a specific group of people that the Most High said he begat, and they were to separate themselves. Shalom.